Joining us now to talk about the UK election and much more is Jim O'Neill. He's Chatham House chair, Lord Jim O'Neill. He also sits on the House of Lords, previous Goldman Sachs Asset Management. Jim, when you look at the polls, good morning, do you believe them? I don't know how you explain this, gap narrowing.
So I don't have a great deal of confidence in them. They haven't really been that useful most of this decade in the UK, really. They completely underestimated the majority that Cameron got in 15, and of course in 17 it was the other way around. So that said, I've been expecting really since the start a small Tory majority. So the very last one we've had from YouGov overnight is almost close to what I have been thinking all along, actually.
Yeah, but the margin of error is big enough so that we could have a hung parliament.
I mean, I suspect that what's behind it, and you hear it all over the UK, nobody wants to vote for any of them. And luckily, as a member of the House of Lords, I'm not allowed to vote. So if I did, I don't know who...
I did not know that. You're not allowed to vote?
No. It's a slightly strange thing, but I'm not sure who I would... I'm a crossbencher, so I'm not affiliated with any party, even though I was a minister in the Tory government. I'm not sure who I'd vote for, but I think that's out there. And maybe what's behind this last week is, of course, as has been well trailed, the Tories have been thinking they would do really well in Northern and Midlands traditional Labour votes. When it gets close to the day, well, am I actually going to vote for a party I've never voted for?
That's where I wanted to go to. You're identified, Lord O'Neill, with brick. You're also identified with the phrase
on my forehead.
Northern powerhouse. And the idea of redeveloping the North. I've talked to Governor Carney about it. You have lived it out of Manchester and Gatley and such. It seems to me as a foreigner almost all lip service of London looking north. Can any given party, including the Conservatives, can they actually go up north and convince people to vote for him?
That is probably the number one question that we'll find out the answer of soon after 10 o'clock onwards tomorrow night, because the Tories have made their pitch, and the only way they will win is indeed if a lot of disaffected northern Brexiteers are persuaded, which is going to require these guys, I think, to believe seriously that post-election a Tory government would take the North a lot more seriously than it has done for a long time.
How do you?
So obviously I'm really hoping that will be the case.
Away from you giving a political opinion, how do you fit the Liberal Democrats into this? If Labour is not the Blair Labour, it's the Corbyn Labour, how do the Liberal Democrats be deciders in the suburbs of London, this key suburb flip vote, and in the suburbs of the Northern Powerhouse?
So, to be candid, I think the Lib Dems have had a very disappointing campaign. They took a really unnecessary, risky stance right at the start with this revoke, which of course is clear what they stand for, but by many, many people, including virtually every Remainer I know, they think it's a little bit undemocratic. So, if they would have stuck with the second referendum as the centre of their Brexit stance, I suspect they would have had a much better showing than they're probably going to get. That said, in some key marginals, they're going to split the vote. In Richmond, I'll be amazed in southwest London if the Lib Dem don't win. And so their performance is going to be relevant.
Okay, should we go through all the scenarios? So let's start, Jim. There's a majority for Boris Johnson. Let's say it's a majority of one or not more. The withdrawal agreement goes through January 31st.
I think there's a difference between a big majority and a small one. If there's a big majority, he can afford to pay less attention to the kind of radical ERG guys. Crucial, in my view, in the Brexit scenario. If for some reason he had a majority of 70, I would predict, without confidence, that he will extend the transition period. If he's only got a majority of 20, probably can't do that easily.
Okay, but this is something that the former Chancellor thinks, right? The bigger majority, the more he can ignore the kind of more right-wing party. But actually, if you look at the parliamentarians running for office this time around, they seem, from the Tory party, just much more right-wing. Is that fair?
Well, I think you can't split it in such simple, historic, conventional ways. If you look at their economic policy, you'd hardly describe it as right-wing. I mean, when was the last time an incoming Tory possible government talking about a huge rise in government spending? In some ways, if you put Brexit to one side, which of course you can't, it's almost a little bit like Gordon Brown's version of New Labour. And so big spending on health, big spending on education, throwing a lot of money at the Northern Powerhouse potentially. It's not what you'd normally associate with a very right-wing Tory government. Socially, I think it is a fair accusation, because not only is, of course, them leaning towards a quite aggressive Brexit stance, but in the past 24 hours, there's now talk about them merging DFID into the Foreign Office. Some would see that, myself possibly included, as a way of reneging a little on the 0.7% commitment to foreign aid, and all that kind of stuff would be more. So it's a different kind of setup, I'd say.